The message came on a Tuesday morning, when Yuna was drinking her coffee and watching the rain fall over Seoul. Her small apartment was quiet. The city below was loud with cars and people, but up here on the 19th floor, she could pretend the world was peaceful. Her tablet beeped. Then it beeped again. Then it would not stop beeping. Yuna put down her coffee and looked at the screen. The message was from the United Earth government. It had 17 security codes. It was marked as the highest priority possible. She read it 3 times before she believed it. The Galactic Trade Council had finally answered humanity's request. After 50 years of sending signals into space, after 20 years of knowing aliens existed, after 10 years of begging for a meeting, the galaxy's oldest and most powerful organization had agreed to see them, and they wanted Yuna to lead the human team. She laughed. Then she stopped laughing. Then she read the message again. Yuna was 52 years old. She had spent 30 years as a hostage negotiator. She had talked to criminals, terrorists, and desperate people holding guns. She had saved 147 lives by using only her words. The government said this made her the perfect choice to speak for all of humanity. She thought they were crazy, but she also knew she could not say no. The next week was a blur of meetings, medical tests, and security briefings. Yuna learned everything humanity knew about the Galactic Trade Council. It was not much, but it was enough to worry her. The council had 12 member species. They had controlled galactic trade for 12,000 years. They decided who could travel between stars, who could trade resources, and who would be left alone on their planets forever. No one challenged them. No one had ever tried. When new species joined the council, they were given standard integration terms. This was a polite way of saying they became servants. They mined resources. They provided labor. They did what they were told. In exchange, they received protection from the council's enemies and access to basic technology. Humanity was expected to accept these terms without question. Yuna looked at the contracts the council had sent ahead of time. They would make Earth a mining colony for 500 years. Humans would work in alien factories and on alien ships. They would have no vote, no voice, and no power. She put down the documents and closed her eyes. This is not a negotiation, she said to herself. This is a trap. But traps could be escaped. Yuna had learned this long ago. The key was to understand what the other side wanted, what they feared, and what they did not expect. She began to study. Her team arrived 3 days before the ship was scheduled to leave. There were only 2 of them. The government had wanted to send 50 people, but Yuna had refused. More people means more mistakes, she had said. Give me 2. The right 2. Taiho was the first. He was 45 years old, thin as a stick, and had the sharpest mind Yuna had ever encountered. He was an economist who had rebuilt 3 countries' money systems after they collapsed. He understood numbers, trade, and the hidden mathematics of power. I read the council's contracts, Taiho said when he arrived. They're clever. Layers upon layers of small traps. By the time a species realizes they've been cheated, it's too late. Can you find a way through? Yuna asked. Taiho smiled. It was not a nice smile. I already have 17 options. I just need to know which one you want. Ray was the second team member. She was younger than the others, only 34, but her eyes were old. She was a cultural anthropologist, which meant she studied how different groups of people thought and behaved. More importantly, she could read body language better than anyone alive. I've been watching the alien broadcasts, Ray said. The ones they let us see. I'm starting to understand how they move, how they speak, what their gestures mean. And? Yuna asked. Ray tilted her head. They think we're animals. Clever animals, maybe, but animals. They don't expect us to understand them. They don't expect us to fight back. Good, Una said. Let them keep thinking that. The ship that would carry them to Station Prime was small and fast. It was the best humanity had, but compared to alien technology, it was like a wooden boat sailing toward a city of steel. The journey would take 40 days. Una used every hour. She studied the 12 species of the Council. She learned their histories, their cultures, their values. She made notes. She made plans. She made backup plans for when the first plans failed. The Veth were beings made of living crystal. They stood 3 meters tall and lived for thousands of years. They valued hierarchy and order above all else. To them, the universe was a ladder, and everyone had their place on it. The Moran were amphibious creatures who worshipped profit. They had built the galaxy's largest trading networks. They were greedy, cunning, and very, very smart. They had never lost a business deal in 6,000 years. The Calics were insect-like beings who shared one mind. Millions of individuals, all thinking together. They feared loneliness more than death. To be cut off from the hive was the worst punishment imaginable. There were 9 other species, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Una memorized them all at night when she could not sleep. She walked the narrow halls of the ship and thought about Earth. 7 billion people were counting on her. They did not know her name. They would probably never know what she did in the meeting rooms of Station Prime, but their futures depended on the words she chose. Taiho found her one night, standing by a window and staring at the stars. Nervous? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. Good. He stood beside her. The Council has ruled for 12,000 years because no one ever challenged them. They've forgotten what it feels like to face someone who isn't afraid. I am afraid, Una said. Yes, but you'll do it anyway. That's what makes humans different. He looked at the stars, so many they blurred together into rivers of light. We're afraid of everything. We always have been. But we do it anyway. Every single time. Ray joined them an hour later. The 3 of them stood together, watching the universe slide past. I've been thinking, Ray said softly, about why they agreed to meet us. We have nothing they want. No technology, no resources they can't get elsewhere. So why now? Why us? Una had wondered the same thing. She had a theory, but she did not like it. Because they're curious, she said. They've watched us for decades. They've seen our wars, our art, our science. They know we're different from other species. They want to know why, and that's dangerous? Ray asked. Very. Because once they understand us, they'll know how to control us. Una turned away from the window. So we have to understand them first. Faster. Better. We have to see what they're hiding before they see what we're hiding. The ship flew on through the dark. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among billions. Ahead, Station Prime waited and Una prepared for the most important conversation in human history. Station Prime was bigger than any city Una had ever seen. It hung in space like a metal flower, its petals stretching out for hundreds of kilometers. Ships moved around it like insects, thousands of them, coming and going from every direction. At its center, a dying red star provided light and power. The human ship was guided to a small docking bay on the station's outer edge. It was the bay reserved for new species, for primitives, for those who did not matter yet. Una noticed this. She said nothing, but she remembered. A Veth official met them at the airlock. He was tall, almost 3 meters, and his body was made of blue-white crystal that caught the light and split it into rainbows. His name was Crystaller, and he was the chief arbiter of the Galactic Trade Council. Humans, he said. His voice sounded like wind blowing through broken glass. Welcome to Station Prime. You will follow me. It was not a request. It was a command. Yuna bowed. It was a low bow, the kind used in old Korean tradition to show deep respect. Crystaller stopped walking. His crystal body flickered with surprise. "You know the greeting of my people," he said. "I know many things about your people," Yuna replied. "The Veth value proper respect. It would be wrong to ignore this." Crystaller studied her for a long moment. Then he continued walking, but slower now. Yuna could feel him thinking about her, wondering what else this small human might know. The meeting chamber was a vast circular room at the heart of the station. Seats rose in layers around a central platform, like an arena. Representatives from all 12 species were already present, watching as the three humans walked to the center of the floor. Yuna felt very small, very alone, but she had felt this way before. Walking into rooms where everyone wanted something different, and someone was going to die if she said the wrong word. She had learned to use that feeling, to let it sharpen her mind instead of clouding it. She looked around the chamber and began to read the room. The Moran delegation sat in a pool of shallow water to her left. Their leader was a large creature with moist green skin and too many eyes. His name was Gulfex, and his advisors kept glancing at tablets and then at the humans with nervous expressions. Interesting. The Kelix filled an entire section of seats. Hundreds of insect-like beings moving in perfect coordination. Their queen sat at the center, larger than the others, her wings folded behind her like a cloak. She was watching Myray with particular interest. Also interesting, the other species sat in their assigned sections. Some looked bored. Some looked amused. None looked worried. They should be worried, Yuna thought. They just don't know it yet. Crystaller took his place on a raised platform and raised one crystal arm. The room fell silent. "The Galactic Trade Council recognizes the species known as humans," he announced. "They have requested membership in our organization. They will now hear the terms of their integration." He gestured, and a holographic document appeared in the air. It was the contract Yuna had already studied, the one that would make Earth a slave world for 5 centuries. "These are the standard integration terms," Crystaller continued. "All new species accept these terms. There is no negotiation. There is no discussion. You will sign, and you will become part of our great civilization." The other species murmured approval. This was how things were done. This was how things had always been done. Yuna stepped forward. "Honored Arbiter," she said, her voice calm and clear. "We thank the Council for this opportunity. We are grateful for your attention." Crystaller nodded. "Then, you accept the terms. We wish to discuss them." The murmuring stopped. The silence was sudden and complete. Gulfex made a wet bubbling sound that might have been laughter. "Discuss? Little human, there is nothing to discuss. You have 2 choices. Accept the terms or leave and never return. Your species will be forbidden from space travel forever." Yuna smiled. It was a warm smile, friendly and open. It did not reach her eyes. "I understand," she said. "The Council's offer is generous. But before we continue, perhaps we should address another matter. A matter of existing agreements." She turned to face the Moran delegation directly. "For the past 10 years, ships from the Moran Trade Collective have been operating in our solar system. They have been mining asteroids in what we call the Kuiper Belt. They have extracted significant quantities of rare minerals." The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted at each other. The Moran advisors dropped their tablets. Gulfex's many eyes went wide with something that looked like fear. Myray had discovered the evidence 3 weeks ago, hidden in old astronomical surveys. Strange energy signatures. Unexplained mineral deposits appearing in Moran markets. A pattern of activity that pointed directly at Earth's outer solar system. "This is lies," Gulfex shouted. Human lies. We have censored data, Taiho said quietly. He was already transmitting files to every screen in the chamber. We have trade records showing Moran metals with isotope signatures unique to our system. We have navigation logs from one of your ships that suffered an engine failure and had to send a distress signal. The logs appeared on every display. The evidence was clear. Crystaller's crystal form was now flashing with rapid colors. Yuna had studied Veth emotional expressions. This was anger. Pure, cold anger. The Moran have violated sovereignty laws, Crystaller said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like a blade. Laws that the Moran themselves demanded we create. Laws that protect their own mining operations from interference. Gulfex tried to speak, but no words came out. His advisors were backing away from him, not wanting to be associated with his disgrace. Yuna waited. This was the moment. Everything depended on the next few seconds. We do not wish to create conflict, she said. We understand that misunderstandings happen. Perhaps the Moran did not realize that our system was inhabited. Perhaps they believed the asteroids were unclaimed. She was giving Gulfex a way out. A chance to save face. She watched his eyes and saw him recognize this. We propose a simple solution, she continued. The Moran Trade Collective will compensate Earth for the resources they have already taken. In exchange, we will grant them exclusive rights to continue mining in our outer system, under agreed terms. Gulfex stared at her. He was trying to understand what was happening. A primitive species should not be offering deals. They should be accepting whatever scraps they were given. What? What compensation? He finally asked. Taeho stepped forward. Technology transfer. Specifically, your agricultural engineering. Earth's growing population requires advanced farming methods. Our calculations show that the minerals you have extracted are worth approximately this value. It was a trap. A beautiful, perfect trap. If Gulfex refused, his illegal mining became theft. The Council would punish him. His reputation would be destroyed. If he accepted, humanity would gain centuries of alien technology. Not as a gift from generous masters, but as fair payment for resources that were already gone. Gulfex looked at his advisors. They nodded frantically. Accept. Accept now. The Moran Trade Collective agrees to these terms, he said. The chamber fell silent again. But this time, the silence felt different. The representatives were looking at the humans with new eyes. These were not primitives. These were players. Crystaller's crystal body had stopped flashing. He was completely still, which Yuna knew meant he was thinking very, very carefully. Perhaps, he said slowly, each word precise and measured. We should discuss the terms of human integration more carefully. Yuna bowed again. Exactly as deep as before. We would be honored, Arbiter. The game had begun. The days after the Moran incident were busy ones. The Council had to investigate Gulfex's illegal mining. There were hearings, accusations, and much shouting. The Moran delegation was humiliated, forced to admit what they had done in front of everyone. But while this drama played out, Yuna and her team were doing something more important. They were talking, not in the official chambers, not in formal meetings. They were talking in corridors, in dining halls, in the quiet spaces where real relationships were built. They were listening, learning, and planting seeds. Myray focused on the Kelix. The insect beings fascinated her. Millions of individuals, all connected through a mental link that let them think as one. They moved together, ate together, even breathed together. To them, being alone was worse than death. Myray found their queen in a garden section of the station, a place filled with plants from 100 worlds. The queen was sitting among flowers that glowed with soft blue light, her compound eyes watching the stars through a transparent wall. May I join you? Myray asked. The queen turned. Hundreds of smaller Keleks turned with her, their movements perfectly synchronized. "The human speaker wishes to talk," the queen said. Her voice was strange, like many voices speaking the same words at slightly different times. "We are curious about your kind." Myray sat down on a stone bench. She was careful to position herself so that many Keleks could see her at once. She had learned that they felt uncomfortable when they could not all observe something together. "I am curious about you as well," Myray said. "The way your people think together. It is beautiful." The queen's antenna twitched. Surprise. "Beautiful? Most species find us strange, frightening." "I find you familiar," Myray said. "Humans are not so different." The queen made a clicking sound. Disbelief. "You are individuals, separate, alone in your own minds." "Yes, yes, and no." Myray pulled out her tablet and showed the queen an image. It was a satellite photo of a city at night. Millions of lights glowing, roads connecting every part like veins in a body. "We build networks. We connect ourselves with technology, with language, with shared stories. We cannot hear each other's thoughts, but we find other ways to think together." She showed more images. The internet, visualized as webs of light crossing the planet. Social gatherings, thousands of humans coming together for music, for sports, for worship. Families eating together, friends embracing, strangers helping strangers in times of disaster. "We evolved as pack animals," Myray explained. "Alone, we are weak. One human cannot survive against the dangers of our world. But together, we built cities, we crossed oceans, we reached for the stars. Our need for connection is the strongest force in our nature." The queen was silent for a long time. Around her, thousands of Keleks were processing this information, sharing thoughts, forming new understanding. "You are many as one," the queen finally said. "Like us, but you choose it." "Yes, every day, we choose to be together. We could be alone. Many of us have been alone. But we always come back to each other." Myray leaned forward. "Is that not more meaningful? A connection that is chosen rather than born." The queen did not answer. But when Myray left the garden, she noticed that the Keleks were watching her with something new in their compound eyes. Respect. Meanwhile, Taiho was having a very different conversation. He had found Crystallar in the Arbiter's private study. A room of perfect geometric shapes and light. The Veth were beings of order, and their spaces reflected this. Every angle was exact. Every surface was smooth. Taiho had requested this meeting to discuss trade mathematics. But he had a deeper purpose. "Your species is impressive," Crystallar said, his crystal form catching the light. "In a short time, you have changed the balance of power in this council." "We are survivors," Taiho said. "On our world, that requires adaptation. Tell me about your world's history." So Taiho did. But he chose his stories carefully. He spoke of empires that rose and fell, kingdoms that conquered and were conquered, governments that changed, evolved, transformed. He spoke of democracy and dictatorship, of religious authority and secular power, of corporations that grew larger than nations. "We have tried every system," Taiho said, "every way of organizing ourselves. Some worked for a time, some failed quickly, but we always learned. We always built something new from the ruins of the old." Crystallar listened without moving. This was how Veth showed intense interest. "You climb," the Arbiter said finally. "Always climbing." "Yes, it is in our nature. No matter where we are on the ladder, we look up. We wonder what is higher. We plan how to reach it. This is why you did not simply accept our terms." Taiho nodded. To accept without question would be to stop climbing, to become fixed in our place. Humans cannot do this. Even if we tried, eventually we would begin to climb again. Crystal's body flickered with colors. Taiho did not recognize. The council has stood for 12,000 years because all species eventually accept their place. The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the natural order. With respect, Arbiter. That is the Veth order. And it has worked well for the Veth. Taiho paused. But humans have a different belief. We believe the natural order is change. Today's servant may be tomorrow's master. Today's master may be tomorrow's memory. You threaten the council? I observe reality. Taiho spread his hands. The Moran believed they were untouchable. They believed no primitive species could challenge them. Now, they are signing away technology to make up for their mistakes. Change happened despite their power. Crystaller was quiet for a long time. You are a dangerous species, he said at last. We are a different species, Taiho corrected. Danger depends on how we are treated. While Myre and Taiho worked, Yuna was conducting her own campaign. She met with representatives from every species, one by one. She learned their names. She remembered details about their homes, their families, their concerns. She asked questions and truly listened to the answers. To the Fenari, a species of small-furred beings who valued art. She spoke about human creativity. She showed them paintings, music, dance. She described the thousands of different artistic traditions humanity had developed. To the Thrall, tall gray beings obsessed with scientific knowledge. She discussed human research. She explained how humans conducted experiments, challenged assumptions, built upon each other's discoveries. To the Orvax, who valued military strength. She told stories of human warriors. Not just their victories, but their strategies, their willingness to sacrifice, their ability to fight against impossible odds. Each conversation was different. Each was precisely designed. And slowly, the mood of the council began to shift. Species that had ignored the humans now greeted them in corridors. Representatives who had laughed at them now asked serious questions. The standard integration terms, once an inevitable certainty, were now openly questioned. One evening, all three humans met in their small quarters to share what they had learned. The Kellics are interested in cultural exchange, Myre reported. They want to understand how humans build community without mental links. The Veth are worried about us, Taiho added, but also fascinated. Crystaller is beginning to see us as potential competitors rather than servants. Yuna nodded. She had expected this. Every species had their own values, their own fears. By speaking to those values and those fears, her team was rewriting the story of humanity. Tomorrow, the formal negotiations resume, she said. The council will try to push through the standard terms again. They will use pressure, threats, promises. They will try to divide us, to make us doubt each other. She looked at her team. They will fail. Myre smiled. Because we know what they want. Because we know what they fear, Taiho added. Because we are human, Yuna finished. And humans have been doing this since before we had language to describe it. Reading others. Finding common ground. Turning strangers into friends and enemies into allies. She stood and walked to the window. Station Prime spread out before her, a galaxy of lights in the darkness. They have ruled for 12,000 years because no one ever truly challenged them. No one ever forced them to see things differently. She turned back to her team. Tomorrow, that changes forever. The formal negotiations lasted for 3 weeks. Every day brought new challenges. The council tried everything they knew. They offered bribes. They made threats. They attempted to confuse the humans with complicated legal language and impossible demands. They tried to make Yuna, Taiho, and Myre turn against each other. Nothing worked. On the 5th day, the Thrall delegation proposed a test of intelligence. They wanted to prove that humans were too primitive to deserve equal treatment. They brought out puzzles that had taken their greatest minds years to solve. Taiho solved the first one in 3 hours. Myre solved the second one by approaching it from a completely unexpected direction, one the Thrall had never considered. Yuna did not solve the third puzzle, but she asked questions about it that made the Thrall scientists stop and think in ways they never had before. Your minds work differently, the lead Thrall scientist admitted afterward. Not worse, different. On the 9th day, the Orvax challenged humanity's right to be considered equals. They pointed out that humans had no fleet, no weapons capable of defending Earth from attack. They showed images of their own warships, massive vessels bristling with weapons. You cannot protect yourselves, the Orvax commander declared. Why should we treat you as partners rather than subjects? Yuna stood calmly in the center of the chamber. May I ask a question, Commander? The Orvax gestured permission. How many times has your species fought a war against itself? Silence. I ask because humans have fought thousands of wars. Against our own kind. For land, for resources, for ideas, for reasons we no longer remember. Yuna's voice was soft, but it carried through the entire chamber. We have developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet many times over. We have created strategies that turn every disadvantage into opportunity. We have studied war not for generations, but for all of our existence. She paused. Your fleet is impressive. Your weapons are powerful. But you have only ever fought enemies who are different from you. Enemies you could predict. She met the commander's eyes directly. Humans are unpredictable. We do not think like you. We do not fight like you. And we have spent our entire history practicing against the most dangerous enemy in the universe. Which enemy? The commander asked. Ourselves. The Orvax did not challenge humanity again. On the 14th day, something unexpected happened. Myre was meeting with the Kelix Queen when they were interrupted by a commotion outside. Other species were gathering, pointing at screens, talking in urgent voices. What is happening? Myre asked. The Queen's antenna moved rapidly as she accessed shared information from her people throughout the station. Her compound eyes went wide. A disaster, she said. A Fenari colony world. An earthquake has destroyed their largest city. Thousands are trapped. Thousands more are dying. Myre immediately returned to the human quarters. Yuna and Taiho were already watching the news feeds, their faces grim. The Fenari are asking for help, Taiho reported. But the other species are debating. They are calculating costs and benefits, deciding if it is worth their resources. Yuna made a decision in less than a second. We will help. Taiho blinked. We have nothing to offer. No ships, no rescue equipment. No, we have knowledge. Yuna was already moving. Humans have been dealing with earthquakes for centuries. We have rescue techniques, search methods, medical protocols. Things that might not exist in galactic databases because most species never had to develop them. Within an hour, Yuna had contacted Earth through their ship's communication system. Within 3 hours, information was flowing from human disaster response teams to the Fenari. Rescue coordinators taught how to find survivors in collapsed buildings, how to prevent further collapses, how to treat injuries when medical facilities were destroyed, how to organize rescue efforts with limited resources. The information was simple by galactic standards. It was also exactly what the Fenari needed. Over the following days, as the negotiations continued, the Fenari rescue teams reported their progress. Human methods were saving lives. Human knowledge, developed through thousands of disasters on a single primitive planet, was making a difference on a world across the galaxy. The other species watched this with growing interest. Humans had no fleet. They had no advanced technology. They had nothing to trade except the contents of their minds. And yet, when disaster struck, they had been the first to offer help. Not for profit, not for political advantage, simply because helping was what they did. Why? Crystaller asked Una during a break in negotiations. You gain nothing from this. Una thought about the question. On Earth, we have a saying. Today you, tomorrow me. It means that misfortune can strike anyone. When you help others, you are also helping the future version of yourself who might need help someday. She paused. But that is only part of it. What is the other part? We help because we understand suffering. Every human knows what it is to be afraid, to be hurt, to feel alone. When we see others in pain, we remember our own pain. We cannot ignore it. Crystaller's crystal form flickered with complex patterns. You are saying that your weakness makes you compassionate. I am saying that our struggles have taught us to care. We know what it costs to survive. We do not wish that cost on anyone else. The negotiations resumed. But the mood had changed again. On the 20th day, the Kelix Queen stood before the council. We withdraw our support for the standard integration terms, she announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber, multiplied by thousands of Kelix speaking in unison. Humans are not primitives to be controlled. They are people. Different people with different strengths. We propose partnership instead. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Morin protested. The Orvax demanded explanations. But more and more species began to speak in support of the Kelix position. The Fenari delegation was especially vocal. They had not forgotten who had helped them when their world was broken. On the 21st day, Crystaller called for a new vote. The question before this council is simple, he said. Do we offer humanity the standard integration terms? Or do we negotiate a new arrangement, one that recognizes their unique nature? One by one, the species voted. The Morin voted for standard terms. They were still bitter about their humiliation. The Orvax abstained. They were uncertain, but the Kelix voted for negotiation. So did the Fenari. So did the Thrall, who had seen the human approach to problem-solving. So did 4 other species who had been quietly watching and learning. When the final count was complete, the standard integration terms were rejected by a margin of 7-4. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Trade Council would negotiate as equals with a new species. Crystaller turned to face the human delegation. His crystal body was perfectly still, but light moved through him in ways that spoke of profound emotion. Congratulations, he said. You have achieved what no other species has ever achieved. You have changed us. Una bowed, exactly as deep as she had on the first day. We did not change you, Arbiter. We simply reminded you of something you had forgotten. What did we forget? Una straightened and looked around the chamber at all the different species, all the different forms of life, all the different ways of thinking. That strength is not the only measure of value. That difference is not the same as inferiority. That sometimes the smallest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. She smiled. Humans learned these lessons through great suffering on our own world. We are happy to share them with the galaxy. The real negotiations were about to begin. The final session lasted for 14 hours. Every detail was debated. Every word was examined. Every possible interpretation was discussed and clarified. The Council's lawyers, hundreds of beings from a dozen species, worked through the night to create a document that had never existed before. A partnership charter. Una sat at the center of the human delegation. Tired beyond words, but completely focused. Taiho handled the economic details, finding terms that would accelerate Earth's development without making humanity dependent on alien charity. Myray watched for any sign of deception, any hidden trap in the complex language. There were many attempts at deception. The humans caught them all. This clause would allow council ships to enter Earth space without permission. Taiho pointed out during Hour 6. An oversight, the Moran lawyer claimed. An oversight that appears in 17 different sections, using different words each time? Taiho smiled without warmth. We would prefer clear language. No council vessel enters our system without human approval. No exceptions. The clause was rewritten. This section discusses technology sharing, Myre said during Hour 9. But it only requires the council to share information. It does not require the council to share the tools needed to understand that information. Surely that is implied, a Thrall representative argued. Implications are the enemy of clear agreements. We want explicit language. Technology sharing includes educational materials, translation protocols, and access to necessary equipment. All listed specifically. The section was expanded. By Hour 12, the council representatives were exhausted. They had never faced negotiators like these. Most species accepted deals that sounded good, only discovering problems years later. Humans, it seemed, saw the problems before they agreed to anything. How? The Orvax commander asked Yuna during a break. How do you find every flaw, every trick? Yuna accepted a cup of something that passed for coffee on the station. We have been cheating each other for thousands of years, she said. We know all the tricks. We know every way a contract can be twisted. We wrote the book on deception, Commander. And then we wrote the book on catching deceivers. The commander made a rumbling sound that might have been a laugh. I believe I would enjoy fighting alongside humans, he said. You would be worthy allies. We would rather be friends than allies, Yuna replied. Allies fight together. Friends build together. At Hour 14, the document was finally complete. Crystalla stood before the full council, the holographic text of the partnership charter floating beside him. This is unprecedented, he announced. In 12,000 years, no species has entered this council as equals. They have all accepted their place below us, grateful for whatever we chose to give them. He turned to face the human delegation. You have refused to accept this. You have pushed back against every attempt to diminish you. You have shown us capabilities we did not expect and perspectives we had never considered. The chamber was completely silent. Some say this makes you dangerous, Crystalla continued. That we should reject you, forbid you from space travel, contain you on your single world before you can threaten our civilization. Yuna felt her heart beating faster. This was it. The moment of decision. But I do not believe danger is the correct word. Crystalla's crystal form began to glow with soft light. You are different. You think in ways we do not. You value things we have forgotten. You approach problems from angles that would never occur to us. He raised one crystal arm. The universe is vast. It is full of challenges we have not yet faced. Problems we cannot yet solve. Threats we cannot yet imagine. Perhaps what this council needs is not more of the same. Perhaps what we need is something different. He turned back to the full assembly. I vote to accept the partnership charter. I vote to welcome humanity as equal members of this council. The vote that followed was quick. The Kellics voted yes, their unified voice filling the chamber. The Fenari voted yes, remembering the help humans had given them. The Thrall voted yes, eager to learn from new minds. Species after species declared their acceptance. When the final count was complete, humanity had been accepted by a margin of 10-2. Only the Moran and one other species had voted against. Yuna stood slowly, her legs stiff from hours of sitting. Around her, representatives from across the galaxy were applauding, making sounds of approval in their own ways. The Kellics clicked their mandibles. The Fenari chirped. The Orvax stomped their feet. She walked to the center of the chamber, where Crystalla waited. Thank you, Arbiter, she said. Earth is honored to join this council. The honor is mutual. Crystalla's voice was warm. or as warm as wind through glass could be. I must ask you something, though. A personal question, of course. How did you do it? You arrived with nothing. 3 individuals from a primitive world. You had no fleet, no technology, no leverage. And yet, you have changed everything. Yuna thought about the question. She thought about the weeks of preparation, the sleepless nights, the careful study of every species. She thought about Taiho's economic tricks and Moray's ability to read alien emotions. She thought about the long history of humanity, all the negotiators and diplomats and peacemakers who had come before her. We had something better than weapons, she finally said. We had perspective. Perspective? Every species on this council sees the galaxy through their own eyes. You understand the universe according to your own values, your own history, your own way of thinking. This is natural. It is how minds work. She paused. Humans spent our entire history negotiating with each other. Thousands of cultures, thousands of languages, thousands of different ways of seeing reality. We had to learn how to understand minds that were completely different from our own. We had to find common ground with people we could not easily comprehend. She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. To us, 12 species is not overwhelming. It is a small room compared to what we are used to. We looked at your council, and we saw patterns we recognized. We saw values we understood. We saw fears and hopes that were not so different from our own. Crystalla was silent for a long moment. You were saying that your world's conflicts prepared you for this. Our world's conflicts taught us empathy. They forced us to understand others. They gave us tools that no other species in this galaxy has needed to develop. Yuna smiled softly. We are not better than you. We are simply practiced. 3 months later, Yuna returned to Earth. She was not famous. The details of the negotiations were classified. The public knew only that humanity had joined the galactic community as partners rather than servants. They celebrated in the streets, unaware of how close things had come to a very different outcome. Yuna preferred it this way. She retired to a small house in the countryside, where she could watch the stars at night and remember the months she had spent among them. Taiho returned to economics, helping Earth's governments prepare for the flood of new technology. Mireille became the first human ambassador to the Kellick's homeworld, beginning a cultural exchange that would change both species. 50 years passed. Yuna was old now, her hair white, her hands marked by time. But her mind was still sharp, and her eyes still watched the sky each night. She was sitting in her garden when Jizu came to visit. Jizu was her granddaughter, 24 years old and burning with ambition. She had been selected for the Galactic Diplomatic Corps, the organization that had grown from Yuna's original mission. Tomorrow she would leave for her first assignment, a trade dispute between the Morn and a newly spacefaring species. Grandmother, Jisu said, sitting beside her in the evening light. What is the secret? What do I need to know? Yuna looked at her granddaughter and saw herself so many years ago, young and afraid and determined to make a difference. Listen more than you speak, she said. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to feel understood. Before you can change someone's mind, you must first make them believe you understand their heart. Jisu nodded, taking notes on a tablet. Understand more than you demand. The moment you start insisting, you stop learning. Stay curious. Stay humble. The galaxy is full of things you do not know yet. And? Jisu asked. There is more, I can tell. Yuna smiled. She reached out and took her granddaughter's hand. Remember that out there, everyone is afraid of something. Everyone wants something. Everyone is, in the end, just trying to survive. We are not different from them. We are not better or worse or more or less. We are simply people, meeting other people. She looked up at the stars, so many of them, each one a sun with worlds of its own. We learned, a long time ago, how to survive together. That is our gift. That is our strength. Share it freely. Share it kindly. And the galaxy will become our home. Jisoo hugged her grandmother tightly. The next morning, she boarded a ship and flew toward the stars. Behind her, Earth turned slowly in the light of its single sun. Ahead, a galaxy of 10,000 species waited to be understood, and humanity, as always, was ready to listen.